Hey, Lauren. This is Jory. Will you make sure to use the microphones?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to get started in just a second.
Perfect.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with introductions, and then Che is going to give us a presentation and give a brief overview of the Wasatch Choice Vision and the regional transportation planning process. And then we're going to get up and get around maps and do a mapping exercise. So starting off with the introductions, we'll do in person, and then I'll move to the online folks. So I'm Lauren Victor. I'm a long-range transportation planner for the Wasatch Front Regional Council.
And I'm Che Mosqueda. I'm also a long-range transportation planner for the Wasatch Front Regional Council.
I'm Mike Christensen. I'm with the Utah Rail Passengers Association and Salt Lake City's Planning Commission.
I'm Matt Gray. I'm a strategic planner at UTA.
I'm Brighton Pease, and I'm a citizen of Salt Lake City.
Jeremy Shinoda, Ogden resident, Ogden Planning Commission.
Sarah Cody, private citizen, Salt Lake City.
Kendall Willardson, transportation planner with MAG.
Ray Hicks, citizen from Utah County.
I'm Andrew Gruber, also citizen from this area, and I work here at the Wasatch Front Regional Council. And just as a reminder, the restroom, if you need to use it, is right around the corner here. And Lauren, just one thing for the folks online, I think you said you were going to introduce them. Would it be okay to have them introduce themselves? And that way we can also make sure that they're...
Yes, sorry, I meant I was going to call on people to
you're going to
introduce
call on
themselves.
them.
That
Okay,
was
very
not clear.
good. Be prepared. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Stephen Richardson, formerly Ogden resident, now Layton resident, as well as Director of Strategic Initiatives and Policy at Weber State.
Alex Boehm, UTA Planning.
And Olivia Bonds, UTA Strategic Planning.
Shauna Meekum, Mountain Land Association of Governments, Community Planner and Air Quality Expert.
Rosie Hernandez, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Okay, and we're going to go to the online folks. We'll start with Andrew and then go to Hugh and Jory.
Hi, everybody. Andrew Riggle, a reluctant resident of Sandy and with the Disability Law Center.
Hey, everybody. Hugh Van Wagenen with I work biking and walking projects.
Jory Johnner, Long Range Planning Group here at WFRC.
Then we'll go to Halima and then Carolyn. We'll come back to Halima. Carolyn?
Carolyn Hoskins, resident.
Thanks. And then we'll go to Sandra, Leah, and Jared.
Hey everyone, I'm Sandra, resident of Salt Lake, and I do a lot with OCA Utah and the Wasatch Trails Collective.
Hi everybody, Leah Baez, Mill Creek resident and also policy director with Promise Partnership Utah.
Hi, Jared Bowling. I'm with UDOT Central Planning, AT Planning Manager, run the Move Utah program.
Jared, what does AT mean?
AT means active transportation. So
that's okay.
I'm the fun one with Angelo at UDOT. We do everything besides vehicles.
We're on acronym watch in this meeting. Okay?
Thank you. Appreciate the reminder.
Okay, did I miss anyone? I think we got everyone. Okay, so now I'll turn it to Che.
Can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. Oh, went too far. All right, so today we're going to be doing something fun. We're going to be doing a mapping exercise, but before we do that, I'm going to get you guys kind of up to speed and give you a refresher on the Regional Transportation Plan and the Wasatch Choice Vision. So as everyone knows, Utah is in a extreme period of growth. We're watching the population continue to grow as people flock to move here and move to different areas in the the state of Utah. But collectively, between us at WFRC, Mountain Land Association of Governments, UDOT, UTA, and the state of Utah, we have a plan to address this growth. So our Wasatch Choice Vision is, Our Wasatch Choice Vision ties the economic development, land use, and transportation together. Our regional council adopted the 10 goals that you see on the side of the screen over here. And these goals are used throughout the entire planning process. So it also has 4 key strategies. The vision is built on this. It's built on transportation choices, supporting housing options, preserving open space, and linking economic development and transportation housing decisions. And right here, we have a picture of the Wasatch Choice Vision map. So as you can see, we have a section where you can basically filter out what you want to see and what you don't want to see. You can filter it by mode, by different transportation choices, and you can look at it through the different land use centers as well. So one of the key things that the Wasatch Choice Vision does is it addresses centers and land uses. And one of the reasons it does this is because a thriving region requires great places where people can live, work, play, and places that vary from city and town centers to parks and public spaces. City and town centers are the hearts of a community, walkable areas where activity is focused with a mix of community destinations, jobs, and housing. And on the Wasatch Choice Vision map, it will have these laid out for us. And it will look like this. So basically what you can do, bring the microphone over with me, is you can come up here and you can hover your mouse over these different areas where that question mark is at, and it will show these different color guides on explaining what each area is, so that when you're looking at this, you can go, oh, hey, this is an industrial area. These are parks. These are urbanized zones, et cetera. So when we're looking at the transportation component of the Wasatch Choice Vision, both the Wasatch Front Regional Council and the Mountain Land Associations of Governments developed the Regional Transportation Plan. They're different from each other. We each develop one, but these are the areas that we cover. So as you can see, WFRC covers basically Brigham City down to Utah County, and then MAG covers Utah County and down. So the Regional Transportation Plan, also known as the RTP, I want to get yelled at by Andrew, just so everyone knows, RTP, Regional Transportation Plan, is developed on a 4-year cycle. It has a financial plan and is fiscally constrained. It conforms to air quality standards, and it ties future land use plans with the Wasatch Choice Vision. The Regional Transportation Plan is divided into phases. Each phase is about a decade long. This is for identifying when projects are needed, when funding is expected, and it basically is between now and 2050. So our upcoming plan will be from 2027 to 2050, and the one that we'll be looking at today was from 2023 to 2050. These projects all get prioritized through a collaborative process involving our local communities and stakeholders, and they include UDOT, UTA to identify transportation needs and to ensure they are aligned with future growth and population and employment growth as well. The RTP is the Regional Transportation Plan, is a starting place for projects to move forward and the prioritization of federal, state, and local funds. All right, so in the Regional Transportation Plan, it's multimodal. So we have all different modes of travel. So we have cars, that includes highways, arterials, collectors. We have transit, which is including core routes, light rail, tracks, bus service, ski bus service, and mobility zones as well. That is like kind of a newer thing that they're doing that I know we've discussed. And then as for active transportation, so that's anything for us, we are looking at that through a pedestrian use. So that will be bicycling and walking. And it's primarily looking at paved trails. So not like necessarily a recreation trail like Bonneville Shoreline, but something that you can use to commute and get around, and it'll connect you to different areas. So there is our regional transportation plan, and then there is also UTA's long-range transit plan. So there is differences, but they do also have similarities. So they're both regionally focused. UTA's long-range trend has an emphasis on all forms of public transit, whereas our regional transportation plan will look at major roadways, transit, and those active transportation projects. And then the big common between us is that it's a 4-year cycle, it's community and data driven, and there's a 30-year vision. So here's a schedule of our regional transportation plan. So right now we are in summer 2024, and so we're looking at strategy and scenario testing and review. And then we'll go into a draft preferred scenario, needs-based phasing, fiscal constraints, and public comment and final adoption. And here are a few different resources. So we wanted to have this up, and we will send these links out to you guys. But this is how you can basically look at our different maps that we have. So that's anything from traffic volume to population growth, land uses, and then also looking at the different programs in the Wasatch Choice Vision as well. And we always make sure that you guys get those links, but we'll be sure to send that out. So does anybody have any questions? I know that was a lot of information, but wanted to kind of refresh. I know we've done this before, but just to get you guys in the mindset for this exercise. Anybody online? No? Andrew? Good? All right. Cool. Well, with that, I'll hand it over to Lauren, and she will explain the exercise we're going to do.
Okay, so we're going to spend the next little bit on a mapping exercise. For the folks online, Jory is going to be facilitating your group, but it will be the same exact exercise, just online, so don't worry. But the idea behind what we're about to do is we've just started the 2027 RTP process. So we're very early on, and we wanted to get you plugged into that because right now we're looking at different strategies and scenarios to test and kind of look at, and then we'll start building the next plan off of that. So what you have, the maps that you'll see in front of you that we'll lay out and then we'll have online are the adopted 2023-2050 plan. And so we'll think of like moving forward for the 2027 plan. That's what we're going to be mapping out and testing for today. But it's looking at the adopted 2023 plan. And so the basic idea is if money wasn't a constraint, what is something you would test? What is an idea that you had that you would want to look at? We're very early on in this process. We just want to look at all of the different options for transit, roadway, and active transportation. And then we'll start to funnel it down and look at different things that come out of that initial testing. But what we're going to do is we're going to get around these maps and we're going to start drawing lines, different routes, identify different corridors to look at. You don't necessarily need to identify the mode, but if you want to, you totally can. We're going to have facilitators at each table to kind of help guide that conversation, answer questions that you may have. But we've got markers, we've got Post-it notes. And yeah, we'll come back together probably at 6:40. So we've got a good amount of time. And what you can do is you can get up and you can go to the tables as you see fit. The facilitators are going to stay put to help answer any questions and things like that. But we do ask that everyone goes to each mode. So make sure, like you might have an interest in one particular mode, but please make sure that you get to each mode and so you can see the different networks that we have for each roadway, transit, and active transportation. Any questions? And again, we'll have facilitators there to answer questions as they come up, but are there any questions starting off?
Lauren, I have several questions.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm asking these questions with the eye towards making sure that the members of the Community Advisory Council who don't do this work every day, like, are clear on what we're doing here, okay? So just first on the logistics, you're saying that there's 3 tables here. It appears from here, this table is for active transportation. So this is trails, biking and
Yes.
walking trails at this table. And so that's,
Transit,
okay, transit. And then this table is roadway.
roadway,
Okay.
correct.
So you want everybody to move, and then online, it's going to be handled obviously all in one meeting.
Yes.
Okay. And so you want everybody from the Community Advisory Council to spend some time at each table and look at the maps.
Yes.
Okay. And on the maps that already there, like, so on this one, the trail one, it's already showing the plans that to build or improve trails going forward. That's already on here.
Correct.
Okay. And so I guess like one way I would just, and that's true for transit and for roadway also. So one way to think about this is the community as you know it now, you know, what area you're from, or thinking more broadly about the whole region as you know it now. And then also thinking decades into the future, what is our situation going to be in Utah decades in the future? As Che was describing in the Wasatch Choice Vision, as we look out ahead, we know that our population is going to grow a lot. We're going to add, you know, by 2050, close to 2 million more people. Most of those people are going to be here on the Wasatch Front. Our demographics are going to continue to change, right? So think about not just today and what's needed for today, but as we go forward into the future, what should we do? What should we do in our region for transportation? Now, also, as you see, maybe the facilitators were going to say this, so I might be repeating something, which is okay. The colors on these maps are centers, right? This is areas where people live, work, and play. Most of these areas are actually residential areas, but areas that have color are more intensive, like think bigger, larger buildings, and not just homes, but homes and jobs and a mix of things. And so you're seeing where people live, where they work, and then the transportation system all together. So just to think about how this is structured. And then the last thing I would say is, when you look at a map, like because we've done this lots of times before, your instinct, I bet, will be, well, I want to draw something new on here that isn't already there. That's totally fine. You can do that. But another way to think about this is these are just plans. That doesn't mean that's what's shown on the maps already is going to happen. So Sarah, if you were like, well, I'm looking at Salt Lake City, and it's really, really important that this thing that's on the map already for Salt Lake City happen, that's my priority. You can, I'm assuming in some way, indicate like, this is key. This is the most important thing. You don't just have to say, well, let me do something new. Okay? Is that?
Yes, that was
Yes?
another thing is it doesn't have to be a new project. You can like thumbs up a project that's already there and planned kind of deal. Another thing that I'll add is if you write anything or draw a line for a different mode, please just make sure to like, you can do like an arrow out and like describe it, like use a Post-it note so that we can kind of understand your thoughts behind it. We'll do our best to be a part of all these conversations and get everything, but we can't remember every single thing. And we want to make sure that we know what you were all talking about and what you intended behind the lines and dots and things like that.
So if somebody writes something on the map that they want to have happen, does that guarantee that it's definitely going to happen in the future?
No,
Okay.
it does not.
But does it
But
guarantee
we'll
that
look at it and test it and figure out kind of where it might fit.
Right.
And, you know, this is the regional transportation plan. It's capital driven, as Che was mentioning, but we also have our friends from UTA here who have different
When you say,
shorter
Lauren,
term,
it's mostly capital driven, what do you mean?
like large capital projects and investments, like a bus rapid transit.
like building new
system,
stuff.
Building infrastructure.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But we also have our friends from the Utah Transit Authority here that have shorter term plans that might be able to take some of these things and look at them as well if they don't fit into the regional transportation plan.
Okay. Last thing, I'm doing this in this way, I'm trying to make sure that it's really clear. Everybody here is really smart and really capable and really knowledgeable and not transportation planners, right? And so I don't want this to come off like I'm like in any way trying to like overly simplify. I just want to make sure that it's clear in a way that makes sense. And then also part of your role in being on this committee is we hope that you do this exercise with us, and then maybe you take it to your community and you do it with them in some way. So as you're doing this, think not just what you think, but like, what about other people that are out there, and like, how could they provide input into this kind of process? So we'll want to come back and talk to you guys about that and see what you think. Okay? Okay.
Any questions?
One item on the, oh, sorry. On the transit, sorry, I didn't see the map before. Do these maps show the existing transit network or the
They just
long range, non-capital items?
No, they
Okay.
just show the adopted 2023, 2050 regional transportation plans.
I'm not,
So it's just worth noting, and maybe that's a matter of visiting our long-range transit plan website. What is missing on this is you won't see all the places where there's transit service today. And there's also items which, maybe this is helpful, maybe this can reinforce. There may be places where you're drawing lines where we've actually already identified, say, a bus service in 2040 or 2050, or we have also zones, innovative mobility zones or on-demand service, which is probably wouldn't also be listed on here, but is also a consideration for transit.
And so when people visit the UTA transit table, they can talk to you about that as well. Cool.
for those of us that aren't familiar with all of these regions, are you accepting or looking for comments on overarching strategies or goals like connect instead of widen, or why is this all zoned single family only? Is
Yeah.
that okay to put down?
Yes, yeah. And so we have the centers on here, and we're also looking at land use. So if you have any ideas about potential policies or things to explore like that, we also want to hear that.
So there's no wrong input.
Correct.
Okay. You can offer any thoughts you want. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
this should be fun. So I hope it's fun for everyone.
Lo-
It's not a lot of
Lauren,
rules. Yes?
For the group online, I've added the concept board in the chat. I think I see Andrew, Sandra, and Jared, Hugh, and somebody from long range planning in here. So if others can join, that would be good. And then you all may want to mute your.
Yeah, we're gonna
speakers
mute
there.
you now,
Okay,
if that's okay.
perfect. All righty.
Okay.
So just we're ready to roll then. Hey, Lauren, can you hear me? All right, it's a test. All right. Andrew, Sandra, Jared, Hugh, Carolyn, and Leah. If you haven't clicked on that link, will you please do that now? I can see a few of you in. The instructions that Lauren had made mention, kind of walked us through, are at the top there. Fortunately, we have Hugh Van Wagenen, who's our active transportation expert, and Jared, who, as he made mention, everything besides vehicles, also here. So thought process is, wanted to walk you through what I'm sharing on my screen, but you should be able to open up your own screen and move around, and I see you all do that. So familiarize yourself with the concept board. At the top of your screen, you'll have a hand. That will move you around. You can zoom in and out. The zoom buttons are either in the bottom left corner, or you can, if you have a mouse that rolls, then you can roll your mouse. That'll zoom you in and out. The arrow will allow you to click on anything. I don't know if we can move anything, so don't worry too much about that. Now, where this becomes kind of fun is you can click on the little scribble tool, the pen with the marker, and you can draw a line. So when we get into each of these, we'll want to draw lines on this, the map, and then, or you can highlight something with the highlighter. Next button is sticky notes, if you want to put a sticky note. And probably what the most useful one is the one with the bubble with the check mark called comment. And to do that, I'll give you an example. We're here on the active transportation map, the first one. You can, where you put it and you put a line, will tag the comment. So I can put in test, right? The nice thing about this is it tells me who made the comment. So this will be useful for us all as we're putting in comments into the map. So I gotta get back to my hand. There we go. Okay. So thought on this is we have about 40 minutes or 35 now. We could spend about 10 minutes on each mode. So let's start with any questions first before we jump in. But I was thinking we start active transportation. We run through these 3 maps and then give you a chance to make comments on what's on there, ask questions if you think something's missed, put comments on there, and then we'll move to roadway and then leave ourselves plenty of time on the transit side as well. So any questions? Andrew, Sandra, Carolyn, Leah? And if you want, you can turn off your face mute, and even better would be turning off your at least turning on your ability microphone to chat about this.
Jory, I have a question.
Yes.
About what a mode is. Is it like different iterations of the plan for the same year?
Mode. So the mode, there's 3 modes on here. Active transportation, which is walking and biking. There's roadway, which includes kind of highway projects, right? New construction, operational improvements, which would be like signal, timing, things you can do without widening the road. And then there's widening road and passing lanes. And then on transit, there are a variety of different types of transit modes, like bus rapid transit, which is the UVX down in Utah County, or the Ogden OGX, the Ogden Express up in Ogden, commuter rail, which is front runner, light rail, which is the tracks, streetcar, S-line. So on the transit, we've got a bunch of different modes, and then within the other ones, they're a little bit more generic project types. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, so it's literally like different options or ways of transportation.
Yes, for sure. And so my thought is like, let's start here on this active transportation. This first map is Box Elder County, so Brigham City. Here you've got Ogden, Layton is here, and you can see the different centers. So those colored areas, if you scroll over here on the right side of the map, are centers, which are higher intensity than surrounding areas. They're walkable, and they're usually mixed use, meaning they're either offices, retail, businesses, or residential within those. So that kind of give you an idea of like the intense areas that we might want to be making sure we connect to. So anybody familiar with the Brigham City to about the North Salt Lake area, Bountiful, North Salt Lake?
They would recognize as a limited resource. We have about 60 million acres on the state of Utah.
All right. Well,
Hey, if there's if we could all mute if we're not speaking directly, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. You could call. I think Carolyn, you had a video on or a TV on and something in the background. But we want your input. So if you want, like I said, you can draw on the map I'm showing you here. You can draw lines. You can highlight items. You can add a sticky note and type in it. Or, as made mentioned before, we have the ability to comment. So any discussion or thoughts from Brigham City down to Bountiful, say? And if not, then we won't take our time here. We'll move over to Salt Lake County and Utah County.
I did have one question.
Yes, Sandra.
How did you guys determine the metropolitan center versus urban versus city versus neighborhood? Is that based off of like population density or?
A little of both. We've worked with local communities for about 20 years on these centers. The cities are in charge of how their community grows with their land use plans. So we've allowed them to decide intensity of what they want in the future and timing. So you can't see it on these maps, but not all of these centers exist right now or are planned to be built in the next 5 or 10 years. Some of them won't pop up for 20 or 30 years. And so we've asked communities to help us identify the shape, right? Where they're actually going to be, what intensity they're going to be. So if it's neighborhood or city or metropolitan, and then we've asked them for timing as well. But again, that's not all on here. It's on you can find that information on the Wasatch Choice site.
Got it.
All right. Oh, looks like there's a comment. Sandra, you've made some here in Salt Lake City area. Appreciate that.
Super exciting to see.
Leah, Carolyn, Tishelle, or Andrew, any other thoughts down here in Salt Lake County of missing active transportation that we want to identify to look at in the future?
I'm taking a couple notes that I can send your way or send to Wasatch to send your way.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Okay, that might be easier than me trying to articulate them. I want them to come across a bit more clear, but thank you for providing a space to comment.
Perfect. And again, if this map will be open, so if you think of something after we get off of the workshop here, you can always come in and add it to this. It's a really nice tool. We used these for about 2 or 3 years during the pandemic when we were all working from home. This was our main tool that we received comments from local communities, our transportation partners, and others. Also note on the active transportation one here, you might see a bunch of gaps. That's because this map, you can't see all the existing routes. And so keep that in mind as well as you're looking at this. For one, the main one you probably don't see on the Salt Lake County version is the Jordan River Parkway, right? And so know that that's on a map, it's planned, it's built, but we didn't put it on here. We're putting in new facilities for active transportation. And then, oh, Carolyn, you're muted.
How often are these maps updated?
Oh, very good question. As Che and Lauren mentioned, we update our regional transportation plan every 4 years. And so we just adopted this plan in the spring, May of 2023. So it's just over a year old. And we're 1 year into our planning of the 2027 plan. So we've got 3 more years to test ideas, work with communities on these ideas that we get from you, and see if they fold into the next plan.
Thank you.
No problem. And again, I get sometimes this technology is a little tricky. So if you're having some issues with putting in notes or providing input, I'd be happy to. Looks like Jared's typing in some comments there. Happy to receive your comments in a different format, and we'll go with that. All right, let's slide down to the roadway map if y'all are interested. Unless you want to still, do you need more time on the active transportation or do you want to move down to roadway? Bryce, welcome. I see you joined. Let me put a link into the chat for you. And if you want to click that link, it's a take you to a concept board here. You can just sign in as a guest, put your name in, and then you can zoom in on these maps. You can add comments. Everything's kind of at the top bar here. I'm sharing my screen and you're able to put a sticky note, a comment, draw a line, and you can see here my test. So that's kind of what they look like if you were to draw something new. All right, well, why don't we move down to the roadway projects? I didn't hear any desire to stay with the active transportation. So reminder on the roadway projects, we have highway point projects, which are the little circles. Those could be overpasses or interchange improvements, grade separated crossings over railroads, things like that. New construction is obviously a new road, a new facility. Operational projects, as I made mention, improve a roadway without widening it, without adding more lanes, travel lanes. And then obviously widening is widening. And then there's some areas where we have some passing lanes on our freeway. Again, same map setup. First map here is Brigham City through Ogden, Layton, Farmington, and then Bountiful. So, if there's roadway improvements or crossings, barriers of the I-15, know that as an example, UDOT completed an I-15 environmental study from Farmington to Salt Lake City, and they spent the first year of the project looking at crossing I-15 and the barriers. And in the final environmental study includes quite a few. I mean, every interchange has active transportation, either biking and pedestrian improvements. And they even added in some totally separate new pedestrian crossings. And so if there are areas that you're familiar with on these maps that are barriers to you, or people in your community or who you're representing, let us know, because sometimes we lose sight of some of those. If you think there's a place that I should be able to, I'd love to cross from A to B here, but I can't, right? There's a railroad or there's a freeway or a canal. We'd love to take that input. Second map here on the highway side is pretty much all Salt Lake County. It goes from about Centerville. At the top here, there's a little overlap, but the big chunk of this is Salt Lake County. You can see improvements along I-15, Bangerter Highway here, Mountain View Corridor. And then out on the west side here, you'll see quite a bit of new roadways, and that are local streets that are out in West Jordan, South Jordan, Harriman area. Any questions on the roadway side? Oh, Tishelle?
No, I was just gonna say it's been really interesting to see it in the works because we're out here in Harriman, which was once nothing.
Right.
So it's pretty cool to see it like West Jordan, Harriman on the how you all see it versus how we see it. So I just thought I'd make that little comment.
In what way do you think it's different, I guess, or what do you see?
Oh no, I was just saying it's fascinating to see how you see it and how it's depicted in the map versus seeing it in person.
Right. No, for
Which is
sure.
more of a comment.
Yeah. Okay. No, I agree. I mean, there's definitely some big roadways out here, right? You've got Mountain View Corridor, you've got 126 South at 134th South, and Daybreak is right here, the orange dot in the middle of my screen. So there's and this is the new area, right? Olympia Hills that was just incorporated in with Harriman. So lots of growth in this area. And for sure, like every time I go out to this, out to the west side communities, there's a lot more growth than what I expected, and things move super quick. But if you have, comments or thoughts on the roadway network in Harriman area, or even active transportation, feel free to put in some ideas here. We're happy to take those. And then final map on the right side here for the roadways is Utah County. So that goes from about the point of the mountain. So you can see Bluffdale Draper here at the top, through Lehigh, Orem, Vineyard, Provo, all the way down to Springville, Spanish Fork, and Payson. And finally, Santa Quin at the end. So that's Mountain Land Association's kind of district or area. Pretty robust. There's some roadway proposals. Don't freak out too much. I don't think they're planning 3 roads across Utah Lake, but in their vision, long range planning, trying to provide connections, because obviously the lake is a big barrier, provide some kind of connection across the lake over to the Eagle Mountain, Cedar Fort, area, Saratoga Springs, kind of this area. So again, thoughts on that, grab the little pen, feel free to draw some items on there.
Hey,
And if you
Jory.
mess up in the top left of your screen, there's a back arrow you can undo. So nothing's permanent.
Jory, can you remind us what the operations part means in the highway projects?
Yes. So operational projects are not adding any general purpose lanes. So those are the regular road lanes that you drive in. Operational projects are a way that we try to identify projects that we can improve without adding capacity or lanes. So that's examples could be signal timing. It could be access management. It could be barriers like medians, like State Street has, where you prevent people from crossing the full road with lefts or rights. Anything to make the road function better without widening it in reality. So we actually, it started off about 15 years ago. We had a handful, half a dozen operational projects. And I think the WFRC plan has well over, 50, 60, 70 projects. And as we run out of right of way for widening projects, we'll see more and more operational projects trying to squeeze out as much capacity or, throughput on those. And then finally, which maybe assume this group is more interested in based on previous meetings I've been in, is the transit projects. And so again, legend in the top right, we have bus rapid transit, which is like the OGX. These are like the tracks, but with buses, total dedicated stations, fixed route, usually higher frequencies. I believe the one down in Provo Orem area runs on every 6 minutes. The one up in Ogden, I think, is on a 10-minute headway. So you'd see a bus come by. You have commuter rail, which is another name for our front runner, our big locomotives. Core routes are right between a bus rapid transit and a local bus. So they could have stations. They have some more permanency. They run more frequent, at least a bus every 15 minutes, could be every 10 minutes. We've identified some corridor preservation on the maps. For example, front runner extension up to Brigham City. We have the gondola on the map, right? It's transit, came from the Little Cottonwood Canyon study. Light rail, also known as tracks in our area. And then streetcar, which we have one streetcar line, that's the S line, that runs from the tracks about along 21st South roughly to Sugar House. So ideas, thoughts, transit in Box Elder, Weber, and or Davis County. As you can see, Lauren mentioned that this doesn't include, and what Alex had asked, this does not include all the transit projects that are out there or planned. These are the ones that fall within WFRC's RTP. So if you see some gaps or some places that should have more intense transit, let's get those on this map, because you can see that we have the core identified. Blue line here is the front runner. The pink line in Southern Davis County is the Salt Lake, or the South Davis Salt Lake connector route. And that's kind of planned to be extended all the way up into Ogden. Obviously, front runner runs all the way up there. So any input or thoughts in Box Elder, Davis, Weber for transit?
Right.
All righty. I feel like I'm doing all the talking, so if needed, ooh, somebody made a comment. All right, thank you, Sandra.
That was me.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
I did have a question about the High Valley Transit. I know that between Salt Lake and like Park City and Summit County, that High Valley is kind of the best way for public transit. Where does that pick up in Salt Lake?
I believe UTA and High Valley have an agreement where they share the cost of the service, and I think they use UTA buses, if I'm correct. But you can see I-80 here. We don't have anything more than, I think is that an express bus, I believe, that runs up there. But if you think that's, you know, something that we should probably look at a higher investment transit service, then let's draw a line or put a note that goes up I-80, and you could even put a note like, you know, connection to Park City or something like that.
Yeah. No, I just looked up their map and it looks like they meet up at kind of near the U and Salt Lake Central Station, and then they go out to Park City. But I was just curious what
Right.
it looked like on the Salt Lake end.
I couldn't remember if a long time ago, I remember it was either going to go down Foothill or if it was coming down I-80 and then up into Salt Lake City. But I couldn't remember exactly the route. It's been a while since I've looked at that route.
Hey, Jory, this is Andrew. Can we don't have to go back to the map, but just before I forget about it, figuring it out on the map is kind of overwhelming. So, and I wouldn't exactly know where to suggest they go anyway. But your last comment about your last example of an operational expense being the divider removal reminded me that that's a particular problem for me for all pedestrians, but for me in a chair specifically out here in the middle of nowhere, because having the divider means that in order to cross safely, you have to go to the next light, which down here might be 2, 3, 4 blocks away, which is a long way to go and come back just to get to the other side of the street. So just mentioning dividers like that made me think, taking a look at where either where those can be reduced or additional lights or crosswalks being added for pedestrians when in areas where there isn't a lot of ability to cross the street now would be an interesting thing to consider.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm trying to capturing that, fat fingering it also. So let me see.
You're doing better than I would.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've used this, and so making sure I capture that. So I got medium dividers provide barriers, requiring pedestrians to cross or to travel
Extra,
further
yeah.
distance to signals. No, I appreciate that. And one thing I think we can continue to work on, and this is, good that Jared's here and Hugh's here, is one of my favorite examples, Andrew, and I don't know if you've been up there in a while, is downtown Ogden on Washington Boulevard. It's a fairly decent sized road, 2 lanes in each direction, center median, parking on the side, bike lanes. But what they've done is they've put some pedestrian refuges in the middle with pedestrian activated signals. And so if you can't get all the way across, something happens, you can at least have a safe spot to stand in the road there and then hit the button, stop the traffic again, and then continue to cross the roadway. So, and those are at mid block, right? So you're not walking, like you said, half a mile or more down to the next signal, which rarely anybody does. They end up playing Frogger and trying to get across the road.
Yeah. And I would probably be one of those people, except it doesn't work real well with the chair. So.
No, you need 4-wheel drive mode, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that comment. So if you have others, Andrew, I will be happy to enter those for you.
Okay.
I understand the limits. And if you have, we're also recording this. And so, if you have other comments, they'll come across on the verbal. I'll let Che and Lauren know to kind of re-listen through some of this. And we can pick up some of that as well.
Well, that was the only one so far, like I said, it's there's a lot going on the map. So
yeah, there is, and it is overwhelming. And if you're not super familiar with the areas, you got to zoom in really tight, and then you can see, we're on South Jordan. There's 114th South. There's 20. So it does get a little tricky. So if the map is a little bit too much, and this goes for everybody, shoot us an email of your ideas. If you're like, we would love to have a new transit line on, or a more improved transit line on State Street in Sandy, right, Andrew, if you're down in Sandy, or I'd like to have better connections to light rail. There's terrible transit service to light rail. Love to have that. Whatever it is, like, just get it to us in an email or call us up, and we'll be able to take that, because again, this can be a little bit overwhelming. We're trying to cover over 100 miles of region on 3 little maps that you have to zoom in. So it is a bit much. I get it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have really talked or planned for this, but if Salt Lake gets the bid for the Olympics in 2034, what kind of infrastructure do you think we would improve on or expand on? I know it's all kind of hypothetical right now, but I'm kind of curious how that might impact some of these plans.
Very good question. We've started having some conversations about that. It's probably less hypothetical than some of us would think. Based on some comments I've heard, it seems like they're gonna let us know on June 24th or July 24th. Somebody picked Pioneer Day, right? If you read the tea leaves correctly, the governor's heading
reading
out
in between the lines.
Yeah, the governor's heading to Paris or whatever to.
They're going to let us know.
Accept the bid, right?
They're going to let us know how they can start spending $4 billion of our tax dollars.
No, there you go.
Yeah.
So Sandra, to take that into consideration, I mean, part of the bid to the Olympics was that we have done a lot since the 2002 Olympics, right? We have front runner, we've got the light rail lines from to Sandy, to the airport, to the university. We've built a new airport. We go out to Daybreak. We've got improvements down in Utah County and Ogden County with streetcar or with BRT. So the initial intent is like, hey, we've got the infrastructure. We've made a lot of improvements to transit. We've got bike share. We've improved our roadway system since the 2002. We've got Legacy Parkway and West Davis Corridor, and Highway 89 is a freeway now in Davis. So if you're getting up to Snow Basin, right? I think there will be another conversation about like what, if anything, in the next 10 years are our top priorities. I think the Olympics are running under the idea of going green. So what things can be electric? You know, there's been some conversations I've been in or heard about autonomous, or what is it? AAM. They just are like drone people movers, like little personal helicopters, right? And can they get people or dignitaries from point A to B with, you know, through the air? And so it's going to be interesting in the next 10 years, but if there are thoughts that you have, and if you're familiar with the locations of the Olympic venues, you know, we're thinking about that. If you go to our Wasatch Choice Vision map, I believe we've added an ability to, and I'll pull it out, I'll put it in the chat, but we've added the ability to kind of look at the Olympic venues. There we go.
Hey, Jordy, you're really good at triggering questions for me, and so thank you for that. That does remind me, as somebody who really wants to see autonomous vehicles become a commonplace place thing, because it would really it would mean that I could be independent and be there with you tonight. But with it does is there discussion as part of the planning process about what the not only how to incorporate infrastructure for electric vehicles, but what kind of planning, what kind of infrastructure, and how to incorporate that infrastructure for in anticipation of the widespread availability and use of either autonomous personal vehicles or autonomous fleet vehicles like taxis and things like that.
Good questions, Andrew. And we explored a lot of that over the last 4 years. We categorized it under a category of external forces and policies. So things that we don't necessarily have control on, right? Like the development of connected and autonomous vehicles or self-driving vehicles is out of our control, right? Like this is an industry thing. But we did start exploring that, and we actually are working and continue to work to identify, you know, when we think they'll be more prevalent in our system. And there's a few experts at UDOT. Blaine Leonard is probably the biggest expert I know of. That's, you know, kind of a huge resource for UDOT, keeps a tab on this nationally, you know, and so we are taking things into that, like into consideration. Also with on the UTA side, they have the VIA service, right? Which is more, instead of having fixed routes of transit that just run from point A to B, they're an area, and you can hail the VIA service or the micro transit, whatever you want to call it, and it'll come to you within a certain distance, right? I mean, then there's obviously paratransit as well. So there's some options that you don't necessarily see on this map, and that would be a cue up here, Andrew, on the southern part of Salt Lake County here. There's not much in our plan. Well, if you looked at our plan overlaid with the UTA long-range transit plan, they have the entire southern part of Salt Lake County here from probably Midvale south as the via service. And they have it up and going right now, at least from, I think, South Jordan south. And so there are some of these services that are running now. We're trying to stay up to speed with new technologies and new things like drone deliveries, and how is, the ability to make an Amazon order and have it delivered to you sometimes in that day, maybe the next day, worst case scenario, 2 days. How are those affecting our transportation choices and decisions? Because it's a different game than it was a few years ago. People working from home, that's a big game changer. Our roads were, pretty clear. There was very little backup and, during the peak hours during the pandemic, because most everybody was working from home. And how is that going to affect us in the future? And we're looking at a lot of that as well.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it, Jory.
No problem. And then road network over here, or transit out in Utah County. I think we got about a couple minutes. I bet they'll probably wrap up here in a second. But you can see the point of the mountain. We'll have light rail. There's a transit line out to Eagle Mountain, at least a core bus route, and then all kind of a few different networks down in the from American Fork down to Provo at least. And then actually some down all the way down to the southern part of Utah County. So happy to open up any discussions. Carolyn, Tashelle, Sandra, Leah, Bryce, any final comments before we get wrapped up? All righty. They'll probably kick us off here in a second. I can see Lauren hanging out by the computer.
I need to hop off, unfortunately, but thank you. I've been listening and it's been really insightful. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Leah. And if you need to, like I said, shoot us your comments or thoughts. We'd love to test new ideas. We're always looking to get people where they need to go. If we don't live in an area, sometimes it's harder. We can look at our models, but there are, people on the ground, boots on the ground, to actually wheels on the ground help us really have a better perspective.
Jory.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
Yep.
When you say test, what do you mean when you say test?
Test means that we're not necessarily committing to a route, meaning, Andrew, if you were like, you know what, I think we should connect the Daybreak area over to Point of the Mountain, right? These are two big centers, and you drew a line from here to there, right? Now, none of us here want to commit to like, yep, okay.
Sure.
The Community Advisory Committee put this on the map, therefore we're going to put it in our next plan. What we want to do is like say, well, is this the right route? Or should the route go here and connect over and down and up? So we want to test these ideas, but we're looking for, things that maybe we've overlooked, or we, just ideas to like make sure, because there's a lot that go into our plans, in the fact that, you got to look at ridership, because none of this is free. It costs a lot of money. Are you going to get good usage? Is it taking people to the right place?
Yeah. I think what I was thinking about was what makes up a test, or what goes into a test, or what are you considering when you test something?
I mean, if I were to test some different ideas here, I might try to connect this center to this center down here, maybe up and over, and then to the Sandy Cairns district, right? To the front runner / light rail station. And do we get good ridership here? Are people wanting to go from Daybreak over to Sandy? That might be something like if I look at it, and we would put that in our models, our travel demand models.
Okay.
And it would say, well, if you put this route in, it'll, you'll get 1,000 people riding it a day or whatever, an hour or whatever the metric is. And then we would say, well, does that warrant putting it into our plan, or should have we went actually from Daybreak down here to Harriman, over here to this other development across and connect to the point of the mountain, right? Like, is that a better idea, or do we need both? And so those are what we normally do when we test ideas. We try to figure out where people are going and want to go and where they are. And does it make sense financially? Nobody wants to see an empty bus. Nobody wants to see an empty train. Nobody wants to see a bike path that never gets ridden on or used.
I do. I love the personalized service when that happens.
You just have it all to your own.
Yeah, I only go to the movies when the theater is empty. I only ride the bus when I'm the only passenger.
It's not a bad idea. You get that whole movie to yourself. You can just
Exactly.
you can laugh as loud as you want. You're not bugging anybody. All right, Hugh, Jordan, Jared, I forget anything?
Appreciate everybody's input and participation. We know we ask a lot of you, so thank you for being here with us.
And Carolyn, Michelle, Sandra, Andrew, Bryce. If the map was overwhelming, we would love to we could do a one-on-one interview with you to capture your ideas. If you have some thoughts on what we want to test or explore or look into more detail. And then Sandra, I see you put a bunch of comments here. We can always follow back up if we have questions.
I do have on the highway project, what the passing lanes, like, are you changing double, or what does that entail?
An example of a passing lane, we just put into our plan up by Brigham City. It's 2 lanes in each direction on I-15. And there was an issue where it's such high, heavy semi-truck traffic that the semis were trying to pass each other. And then it was just holding all the traffic back. And so it's usually for a short period of time, usually on a hill or, during a really busy section, they'll add, like, if you've ever driven from here to St. George, there's quite a few passing lanes for semis or vehicles, especially on those big hills where the road doesn't need to be 3 lanes all the way from here to St. George, but for very short segments, maybe a mile or a half mile or whatever, they'll put in a passing lane. And we don't have a lot of those in this plan because I think it's just limited to the freeway.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen those and always wondered what they were for or how they work. So thanks for that explanation.
You're welcome. I grew up in Wyoming, and there's about nothing worse than driving across I-80 and, crossroads of America with, 10,000 other semi trucks just racing each other at half a mile an hour faster, and you get stuck behind, 2 semi trucks for what seems like forever, but it's probably only like 5 or 10 minutes. But and then you get to eat all the rocks they kick up. So anyways, like, I'm a big fan of passing lanes in strategic areas, safer for everybody. And I'm sure the semis are very happy with it as well, because then they don't have to have so much pressure.
Hey, sorry, online folks, I am going to interrupt. I'm going to have everyone start getting back to their seats, and we're going to come back together for our last 10-ish minutes. Okay, as we come back together, thanks everyone for participating in that. Are there any kind of initial reactions to this exercise? Any thoughts, ideas? Anyone online?
Say that, Lauren, ask the question one more time,
Oh,
please.
yeah. So as we finished up this exercise, thanks everyone for participating with us. Are there any initial reactions, thoughts, ideas after conducting this? Any ideas?
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
Like, this is hard. Like, I don't think,
Yeah.
Lauren, you're necessarily asking like, put a bus route on this place. But it's like, now you've gone through this thought process, you know, like, what do you think about this planning process? How does it feel? Was it easier, harder? Do you want to become a transportation planner? What do you think?
Yeah, I do appreciate the opportunity to participate in things like this, knowing like we had a really great conversation over at that table, knowing the different communities that I work with and serve, it does give a lot to be able to think through and like represent them. So I do appreciate that. And like, do I want to be a transportation whatever planner? No. But I do appreciate opportunities to be able to be like at the table and have the conversations.
Jay? Microphone.
I wondered if you focused more on the areas that they know intimately, it would be easier for them to give you detailed feedback. And then another option would be possibly to use the mapping systems that we all use leading up to this exercise for their advocacy groups, to the degree they represent advocacy groups, and maybe collect that kind of input that they could, you know, discuss and advocate for in a slightly different setting. Might be more productive. You know, you'd have a little more preparation and context, and then we could all debate which ones make more sense. No.
Yeah. Thanks. Any other reactions, thoughts? Anyone online? I have another question, but no.
I can,
Oh, yeah.
I loved hearing other people's ideas and such, and it gave me more ideas as I went around and read them. I was like, oh, this actually would be cool. This would actually be really neat to have. And also like thinking about the communities that we are representing or are a part of, and thinking the barriers that exist and being able to lay it out in these plans too. That's a good opportunity. Thank you.
So thinking about this and kind of the future of the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, as we move through this process, we've done this mapping exercise with you, but we still want to go out to the broader communities and have more opportunities for workshops and have more people be able to put pen to paper and provide ideas. Do you have any advice or ideas of how we might best do that within our region?
This may not be in response to your question, but just kind of the feedback we were just given. Is there a way to make sure we're capturing, I know we're going to give this feedback, take it forward, but to give this group credit if one of our ideas get accepted and used, because that gives more legitimacy, I think, to our group.
Yeah.
I think it's very important because these are some great ideas. So if we can somehow report back, you know, whoever the powers that be, to say this group did contribute this idea and this idea and this
Yes,
idea.
yeah. So throughout the entire regional transportation planning process, we keep a log of every single comment we receive. So basically what we'll do is we'll scan these maps, we'll scan the comments, and then we'll also go through and write in each comment. And we'll keep that in a spreadsheet. And we'll go through the planning process with those projects, take a look at them, and they will be noted as like from the date and the Wasatch Choice Community Advisory Committee.
And I'll just add to that. And then Andrew, I see with you got your hand up. Andrew Riggle online. We'll come to you in one sec. WFRC, MAG, UDOT, UTA, this matters to us, okay? And that's the whole point. We're collecting this feedback. And if there are ideas that come out of this, particularly if the advisory committee sort of coalesces around priorities, let me just say, like, we're going to go fight to make those happen. Okay? Yeah. Andrew?
I was just going to say that process-wise, I kind of felt overwhelmed by by all of the by the area covered by the maps and also the different elements depicted by each of the maps in each of the different areas. So my thought was one, give there needs to be sufficient time for folks to review the maps and have and orient themselves to the maps, and then have discussion about each of the pieces. And I know it's regional planning, but maybe one idea to help with that would be, to the extent that it is possible, have folks break folks down into groups that they either, they live in the area, or they work in the area, or they commute between the two areas, so that they are commenting on the areas with which they are more familiar, and their time is well spent, and you're getting feedback about things that those folks experience every day, rather than asking them to comment on things that they don't have great familiarity with, or everything under the sun. So
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. That's really helpful. We try to find the balance, because it is, like you mentioned, it is regional planning. And so we do want to get that regional perspective, but you're absolutely right that it can be very overwhelming, and with all the different modes and the different types within each mode, it's a lot of information to grasp in one meeting. So that's really good feedback. Thank you.
It might be easier as you go out and you're presenting this to more targeted groups and more targeted areas, rather than this advisory group that has people involved in it from across the entire region. So
Hey, to that point, I know Sarah has a follow-up also. We'd welcome all of your input. If you say there's a particular organization, or there's a particular community, and let's do something more targeted there, we could do that. Or you, as members of the Community Advisory Committee, you could do it, and we would support you in doing it as an ambassador to the community. So to Andrew's point, how can we be as effective as possible? Sarah?
I really liked Andrew and Jay's comments on that. I'm going to say however, but not however. I live on the east side, but west side is actually like where my passion is, what I care to like advocate for. And also when I was sharing, like, they were like, hey, where are you usually at? And I'm like, wherever a university is probably where I travel most. So like, I think also when we're talking about like, hey, we're going to be talking about this area, like this is a lot of ground to cover. And I agree, it was a little bit overwhelming at first. And Lauren had been like, oh, this map is upside down. And I'm like, it's a map. Because like maps aren't like something I'm super familiar with. I think if I were to be like, hey, students, let's look at this map and like start some transportation like planning, my students actually would be really excited about it. However, giving them transportation planning this much might be overwhelming. But if I were like, hey, let's do some transportation planning for the West Side or for like a specific area and giving them a little bit of time to like look that area over, or giving us a little bit of time, 3 or 4 days to like think through, okay, we're going to look over just this area. And then coming in, we would have a little bit more knowledge. We'd have a little bit more like actual community voice and not just our own voice. So like those kind of things in advance.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other thoughts in our last minute?
Lauren,
Yeah.
one thing that would be maybe as a follow-up email to this, sending this concept board that we used on the virtual exercise for anybody that was sitting around the maps there. If you get home and you're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about this, or wish I could have zoomed in a little closer. We could send out a package, with this concept board, the Wasatch Choice Vision, with the, you can click on projects to see what's currently planned, and keep getting that input.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the online folks had like a virtual mapping thing. So we'll send that out to the larger group so that if you in the coming days think of anything else or have other questions, you can throw it on there and we'll review that as well.
And then maybe lastly, Lauren, if anybody, because it is a little tricky, as Andrew may mention, I mean, we've got 100+ miles of region between WFRC and MAG in length. Pick up the phone, chat with Che and Lauren, and just verbally get them your comments, and then they can get it onto the map. If you're familiar with an area of why doesn't this connect here or there, or I would sure love to get from wherever, Layton to Syracuse, or can I get to Layton to Ogden better or at all? Let's think about that's an option also of just reaching out.
Yeah, we're here as a resource. So as you have questions as they come up, please reach out.
And Lauren, this type of work, thinking about what the transportation system should be in the future, this is, just as a reminder, this is a big part of what this community advisory committee is designed to do. And so our hope here is that, we don't just do this and then we move on to completely new things, that you all as members of the committee are building some expertise in this, can give us feedback, and then we can partner together to do more effective outreach to the community. So keep thinking about this and keep building your knowledge, and like Jory and Lauren are saying, get in touch with us in between, and we'll just keep talking about these things as we go forward in our upcoming meetings as well.
Hey, Lauren and
Yeah.
Jory, is there a link that maybe this group can provide to those in the community that they feel like leaders in the community or other groups that may have some comments that would be valuable? Do we want to extend that out to additional people, or do we want to keep that kind of focused?
Lauren, I think we could keep this concept board live, right? Like we can take the comments that we get today, and if they use the comment feature, it timestamps it, so we'll have a way of tracking. But I think it would be nice to share, and maybe we could write up a user's guide, right? Like at the top, there is a ability to draw a line, use this little button to make a comment, but I don't think it's a terrible idea, Jared, to like share it with others.
Yeah, I think we can get together and explore that idea.
Okay.
That's a good
I was
idea.
just thinking reaching out to some of our partners and maybe getting their opinion on a little bit of a broader group.
Yeah, we'll follow up with that. It's a good idea. Thanks. All right, we're over time, but if anyone has any quick general announcements, we usually keep that for the last bit of the meeting. So if there's any upcoming items or things.
Okay, June 26th and 27th. June 26th is the English session. June 27th is the Spanish session. 5:30 p.m. Union Station. plan-ogden.com. We're having a pizza party for unveiling and accepting comment on the new Ogden general plan.
Great. Perfect announcement. Anyone else?
And if it's okay with you, as a follow-up to this meeting, when we send out a follow-up, we can include any of these items that you're sharing with us, okay? I'm looking at Rosie, so yes, okay. Okay, good.
Yeah, we'll include all of these in the follow-up email. Alex?
UTA is getting ready to present the draft version of our 5-year service plan. So what's coming up in the short term, we talked a lot today about what's happening maybe 30 years out. This is for the next 5 years. It's going to our Board of Trustees tomorrow, so it becomes public tomorrow, and there'll be more information online within the next month on rideuta.com service plan. So I can send that link out also.
We'll send that information out.
Okay, so it's World Refugee Day next Friday and Saturday, so June 21st and 22nd. So on Friday from 6 to 11, then Saturday 11 to 4 at Big Cottonwood Regional Park. So it's a celebration of the different refugee communities that exist in Utah, celebrating their culture, their food, and dance, and just enjoying being around them. So I'll send a flyer out, and people will get that.
And if you haven't been to the World Refugee Day festival,
Yeah, festival. Yep.
it's super fun. It's super fun, totally worth going to.
All families, it's just such a fun place.
Any other updates? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for your participation in this. One last item, if you didn't sign in when you came in, will you please do so? Make sure, get your gift cards out.
Lauren, there is one comment in the chat, just a reminder, Juneteenth events throughout the state and month. Tashelle said she'll share those, and then we can
Great.
forward that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all. Yay.